We sincerely apologize for that technical glitch. Welcome once again to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedugba. The headlines. Nigeria Supreme Court affirms Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba governors' election victories. Human Rights Watch alleged Burkina Faso military drone strikes killed 60 civilians. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sees growing partner in Angola. And details shortly. News Central now at this hour begins with court matters in West Africa, where Nigeria's Supreme Court has upheld the election of Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State. The court, in a unanimous decision by a 5-member panel led by Justice Kudirat Kekiriekun, on Thursday dismissed as lacking in merit and appeal the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Mr. Tonye Cole, filed to challenge the outcome of the governorship election that they held in the state on March 18, 2023. In the late judgment that was delivered by Justice Ibrahim Salawa, the Apex Court said it found no reason to dislodge the concurrent verdicts of the Court of Appeal and the Rivers State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal, which upheld Fubara's victory at the poll. The court held that Cole did not establish that the election was not conducted in compliance with provisions of the Electoral Act for 2022. And let's also tell you that the Supreme Court has affirmed the election of Ahmed Aliyu as Sokoto State Governor. Reading the late judgment, Justice Tijani Abubakar dismissed the appeal by the PDP and its governorship candidate, Saidu Umar, agreeing with the reasoning of the court below. Similarly, the Supreme Court has upheld the election of Agbu Kefus as Taraba State Governor. Reading the lead judgment, Justice Lawal Garba dismissed the appeal by the New Nigeria People's Party and its governorship candidate, Yahaya Sani, for filing an incomplete record of appeal. We now head to southwest Nigeria, where Ondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa has nominated a former deputy clerk to the National Assembly, Olayide Adelami, as his deputy. The nomination followed the dissolution of the State Executive Council on Wednesday. A statement by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Ebenezer Adeniyan, said the name of the new deputy governor has been transmitted to the House Assembly for approval. The governor has also approved the appointment of Tayo Oluwatuyi as the secretary to the state government. He also approved the appointment of Abayomi Olasonya as the chief of protocol. Now, both appointments take immediate effect. And to talk about these, we're joined live by Okiki Adeniran, who is a legal practitioner and also a political analyst. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, what factors and considerations might have influenced Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa's nomination of Olayide Adelami, who is a former deputy clerk to the National Assembly, as now the new deputy governor of Ondo State?
And basically, the factor that would have probably, prompted the governor to appoint the deputy governor is just basically politics. At the time we are now, the election is going to be coming up later in a year, and I believe that the governor is trying and putting all he can into governors of Ondo State to make sure that things are done properly. You will also not take away from the fact that the governor probably will be contesting the next election. The political space in Ondo State has been very hot for a while, and in fact, the person that has been appointed now is a kinsman of the late governor. It means that the person is from the state, the particular local government where the former governor was. And I believe that these are the things that the governor is trying to do to, pacify people from that area, and also to ensure that governance is done properly, and also talking about politics is also on top of the game.
Okiki, how do you anticipate the nomination of Olayide Adelami will impact the political landscape and also governance dynamics in Ondo State?
Well, it will impact the political dynamics a great deal. Like I said, you would not take away for the fact that the governor is trying to put his steps and trying to ensure that things are done, even in political space, done properly, such that when he declares his ambition, things will not, some other people would not turn against him and, tell him no. So at this point in time, I believe it's a game of politics. Basically, the governor will probably be trying to ensure that he's performing well as a governor and trying to do everything in his mind or in his part to make sure that Ondo State enjoys good governance, and also politically to ensure that even in politics, his party can see that he's capable of doing what he has promised to do and also continuing as the governor of the state.
Let's talk about the immediate appointment of Tayo Oluwatuyi as the secretary to the state government, and also Abayomi Olasonya, who is now the chief of protocol. I mean, what insights can be drawn regarding the governor's priorities and as well as objectives for his administration?
The insight to be drawn from this is basically the governor is trying to put his trusted hands in government. At a time when there were issues regarding the governor being the acting governor, I stated here at the studio that yes, the governor needs to put his trusted hands into the appointment. Get his trusted people on board to ensure that things are done properly and to support him. Now he has dissolved the cabinet, and he's expected. He has dissolved the cabinet, and he's trying to get people on board. The insight is just to for us to get here is just that he's trying to get his loyal people on board, honest people that he knows that yes, by the time if eventually he states his ambition to contest as the governor of Ondo State, he can be elected, and he will have people to work with him as regards that ambition. So basically, the appointment we are saying now is one, political incline, two, for good governance, and three, for his own protection as the governor of Ondo State.
All right. How about in the context of the recent changes in the Ondo State Executive Council? I mean, what implications do you foresee for the state's policy direction and also administrative efficiency, even overall governance as Governor Adedeji reshaped his team with these new appointments?
Yes, as he has done, I know he has, for some people in some quarters, it's so sure that they are not happy. But, like politics is a game of loyalty. I keep saying this, it's a game of loyalty. As it is, the governor is, to his own mind, is trying to do the best he can, do for himself and also for the state. From the history, from the background, from what you heard regarding Ondo State, when the former governor, late Akeredolu, was still alive, and there were power tussle and other things. There were issues where some of the appointees, talking about the commissioners and some other people in the cabinet, were saying about the governor right now. At that time, they were instigating things, trying to impeach him as the governor of the state. But it's just a lesson for us to learn that in particular quarters, you need to, as much as you want to speak about a particular issue, you need to actually learn also to ensure that to keep to what you have been called to do. Now, as it is, he has dissolved the cabinet. He has, is making new appointments. It's so sure that the people that he told to, leave the offices were not loyal to him. Probably were not going to even take his instructions. I commend some of them who tried to, resign even before this dissolution came. So it's just glaring. It's glaring that the governor is doing his best to ensure that there's continuity by the time he tries to, announce his ambition, and also that governance is done properly in Ondo State.
All right, thank you so much for your time and expertise on the news. Okiki Adeniran, a legal practitioner.
Thank you for having me.
Justice Iyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted bail to the immediate past governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano. He ordered that the former governor in the southeastern Nigerian state should be restricted to the court jurisdiction. He ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to deposit the defendant's travel document with the court registrar. Ekwo then ordered the registrar to notify the Nigerian Immigration Service of this development. The prosecution counsel, Silvanus Tahir, had prayed the court to remand the former governor. He subsequently adjourned the case till March 4, 5, 6, and 7 for continuation of the trial.
Directors have landed properties within the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Then his passport, international passport, travel document was seized and was with the commission. Anytime he had reason to travel, he will apply and it will be given to him. So the court essentially adopted the administrative bail conditions that the defendant enjoyed while on administrative bail. Then additionally, since the court wasn't part of the previous bail conditions, we applied that the verification be done on the residential and business addresses of sureties. And like you know, bail is always a discretion of the court. While he was with us, to the best of my knowledge, he didn't flout any of those bail conditions. The important thing is that he should appear before the court for his trial, which is what the court.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has voiced hope for greater U.S. investments in Nigeria, but calls for Africa's largest economy to reassure investors that they can repatriate their funds. He says the U.S. has a growing interest in working with and investing in Nigeria. In Abuja on Tuesday, Blinken also praised economic reforms promised by President Bola Tinubu.
Now, what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is that there is growing and significant American interest here in working in Nigeria and investing in Nigeria and partnering with Nigerians. And we see now the challenges that still need to be met to make sure that this is the most inviting business environment possible. And we talked about some of them, including last night, meeting with federal government leadership, including the ability to repatriate capital, including the ongoing challenge.
In the meantime, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has left Nigeria for final stop of African tour in Angola. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, greeted Blinken on the tarmac before boarding his plane. Blinken toured the commercial metropolis of Lagos, where he visited a complex of IT startups and inaugurated a new U.S. space showcasing American technology. Blinken's motorcade passed through teeming streets of the city of more than 20 million people before entering the sparkling complex of 21st century technologies, where he was shown Nigerian innovations in software and virtual reality. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will explore greater coordination with emerging regional partner Angola, capping a tour of Africa to champion U.S.-friendly democracies as global crises mount. After years of estrangement with Washington during the Cold War, Angola has seen growing common ground with the United States, including by working together to address violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Blinken arrived late Wednesday in the oil-rich former Portuguese colony's capital, Luanda, and will meet with the president, João Lourenço, on Friday. Angola is a linchpin of one of the signature U.S. infrastructure projects on the continent, the Lobito Corridor, which will connect landlocked Zambia, hailed by Washington as a model for its robust democracy, as well as resource-rich DR Congo to Angolan port on the Atlantic Ocean. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday departed Abuja for Paris, France on a private visit. Special advisor to the president on media, Adjorin Galale, in the statement said the president will return home in the first week of February 2024. On June 20, 2023, 3 weeks after assuming office, the Nigerian leader opened his foreign shadow in the city he last visited as president-elect, Paris, the French capital. The special advisor to President Tinubu on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, has said that the president has no intention to move the federal capital from Abuja to Lagos. He explained that the recent controversy that has been sparked due to moves by the CBN and FAN to relocate the department from Abuja to Lagos has misinterpreted the situation. He argued that the movement of FAN to Lagos has nothing to do with the moving of the Federal Capital Territory, and that the conspiracy is fueled by dishonest, ethnic and regional champions. Onanuga explains that the movement of some department of the CBN to Lagos should not trigger another outburst, noting that the departments are directly working with commercial banks, which are all headquartered in Lagos. Earlier, Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst, spoke to us on these developments.
FCT has been the host of the Federal Capital Territory since 1991, and it's not just done administratively, it's backed by a law. And until that law is repealed, Abuja remains the Federal Capital Territory for Nigeria. So I never for 1 second believe that Bola Tinubu will want to do that. However, the growing suspicion has been that relocating FAN to Lagos and relocating part of the offices of Central Bank to Lagos have been the two things that fuel this speculation. And this has been on even before the general election last year, that this was going to happen. But I doubt if any president, whether past or present, will want to toy with that kind of very volatile issue of relocating the country's headquarters back to Lagos. Lagos is already congested. Can't do that. I think it's not appropriate. The justifications were just not there. How will you say, oh, you have to relocate some of the offices of Central?
The Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria has called for regular collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission towards rescuing the dwindling fortune of the broadcast industry. Bon Medokor, with its chairman, Comrade Saliu Abdulhamid Dembus, led his team on a courtesy visit to the office of Director General of the NBC, Charles Ibu in Abuja. The purpose of the visit was to engage in constructive discussions surrounding pertinent issues affecting the broadcast industry in Nigeria, with major focus on the digital switchover project, actively involving stakeholders in the industry to collaboratively explore viable solutions for a continuous improvement. The Director General of the NBC, Charles Ibu, emphasized that the Commission will continue to work with stakeholders and the industry, adding that he looked forward to having a mutually beneficial working relationship. Now, both parties expressed commitment to ongoing dialogue and collaboration for the betterment of the broadcast sector in Nigeria. The Nigerian government has set a tax revenue target of 19.4 trillion naira for the year 2024. And this is as the Federal Inland Revenue Service collected a record 12.37 trillion naira in tax revenue for the Federation in 2023, surpassing the year's target of 10.7 trillion naira. Now, this disclosure was made at the opening of a two-day strategic management retreat of the agency held in Abuja on Wednesday. According to the chairman, FIRS, Dr. Zacch Adedeji, the new target is achievable because of an effective tax collection system and a viable economic environment for businesses to prosper. On his part, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Wale Edun, stressed the need for increase in tax revenue to enable the government to discharge its responsibility to the citizens. And to talk about this further, I'm being joined live by Johnson Chukwu, Chief Executive Officer, Cowry Asset Management Limited.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Now, what factors are responsible for the Federal Inland Revenue Service achieving 12.37 trillion naira tax revenue collection for the year 2023?
I think there are two major factors. One is that we've seen some operators in the economy, particularly the financial services industry, we've seen an increase in their revenue and profitability last year. So, which, I mean, in 2022, which will ordinarily flush into the payment of higher company income tax. And then the devaluation of the currency is another factor, because what has happened in terms of value of volume of money that is associated in business transactions and kind of profit that they declared, the depreciation of the currency had led to an increase in the volume of money, so which does not translate to real value of money. So you are going to see, for instance, they are projecting about 19.4 trillion. And if you look at the kind of depreciation the currency went through, and you look at the volume of money that is now involved in transactions, and the volume of profit that companies are going to declare because of higher volume of money, then you could actually see an increase in tax revenue or government revenue to that 19.4 trillion. But the major factor is that we've seen an increase in the time profitability of naira profitability of companies. And secondly, there is actually some improvement in the efficiency or efficacy of tax management system in the country.
All right, could you elaborate on the measures mentioned by the FIRS chairman, and that's Dr. Zacch Adedeji, that will aid, the perceived achievement of 19.4 trillion naira tax revenue for the year 2024?
I think there are two things he mentioned. One, he said the tax management system or tax administration has improved. I agree with him absolutely that we've seen some improvement with what the fiscal harmonization committee led by Zacch Adedeji is doing. We've seen a material improvement in tax administration in the country over the years. The introduction of BVN, biometric registration numbers, has also helped in the tax authority's ability to monitor the transactions volume in the banking system, ability to impose base of judgment tax on corporates that refuse to pay their taxes. And now we've also seen some level of awareness on the part of tax payers, particularly corporate taxpayers, to comply with the tax law. Then added to that, the second issue is, I said, improvement in economic activities. That one will go with some level of question mark because we are not seeing material improvement in the level of economic activity in the country. If you look at the economic growth in the last year, by the end of September, average economic growth was about 2.45%. I don't think that was material enough for one to say that there's material improvement in economic activities. What you're going to see the impact of in terms of the naira value of business transaction and profitability of companies because of depreciation of local currency. And I think those two factors, depreciation of currency, that has led to a larger volume of transactions value, and then some level of improvement in terms of tax administration. Those two is what I think will contribute to the possibility of them achieving 19.4 trillion. But as it relates to increase in the economic environment, I don't think Nigeria has witnessed material improvement in the economic activities last year, or likely going to see the same, and we're not likely going to see the same this year.
I hear you, Johnson, but then how does the Ministry of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Wale Edun, see the increased tax revenue impacting government's ability to fulfill, its duties to the citizens?
Yes, of course. If you look at the government's ability to meet its obligations to the citizen, depending on its ability to generate revenues, we've seen previous years where the government is struggling to meet its obligations to the citizens. I'll give you an instance. Last year, by the end of September last year, total government revenue was only federal government revenue was only 8.65 trillion naira. At the same time, the government has spent 12.7 trillion naira in expenditure. And the government had only 1.47 trillion naira to invest in capital projects. So government is not able to build the necessary roads, the seaports, the highways, the rail lines, because of paucity of revenue. So if we see improved government revenue in form of tax revenue, that will enhance the government's ability to invest in critical infrastructure, physical infrastructure, social infrastructure that we need to improve the living standard of the citizens, as well as make the economy conducive as an investment destination.
All right, thank you so much for your time on the news. Johnson Chukwu, many thanks for your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. Fishing is a major activity in Nigeria, with men and women deriving their livelihoods from the trade. But the prevalent incidents of illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing in Nigeria's waters have raised concerns, as these has constituted a huge threat to the livelihoods in these local fishing communities. The assertion is that these illegal fishing activities are perpetrated in Nigerian waters by foreigners, and an estimated sum of over $70 million is lost yearly to these criminal activities. And now joining us to talk about this menace, which has become a bane of Nigeria's blue economy, is Zacch Adedeji, a maritime lawyer and a managing partner at Channel Legal Practitioners. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. Now, looking at the economic potential of Nigeria's ocean resources and also the huge sum lost yearly to the illegal activity, of fishing, what is your expectation of the marine as well as the blue economy, to help nip this menace in the bud?
Thank you very much. The maritime practitioners have for long, been longing for a dedicated ministry to marine and blue economy. Now that we have one, the ministry or the minister per se, now, in my reckoning, what has to be done is to make sure that there is a collaboration with the Ministry of Fisheries. Because as it is now in Nigeria, fishing, licensing, registration of fishing trawlers and all of that is under the auspices of the Ministry of Fisheries. And even in our laws, the minister referred to is the Minister of Fisheries. So I think that the Minister for the Marine and Blue Economy Ministry must kind of collaborate with the Fisheries Department and find a way of, having a blueprint. And this will not just be talking, but actually going beyond talking. A lot can be done. It's difficult to manage or to to conduct surveillance of a vast coastline, but more can be done by, empowering the Navy, the Nigerian Navy, and then, pumping more money into the deep blue project, providing the surveillance materials. And then we need to collaborate with our neighbors in the Gulf of Guinea. I'm happy to know that Nigeria, because, the menace of illegal fishing is a global thing. The IMO says it's an organized crime. So there's a lot riding on that on the global scene. So we can't do it alone. But the minister has to reach out and there has to be that determination to really bring this to an end or to bring it to a minimal level.
All right, let's talk about the impact of illegal fishing on Nigeria's blue economy. What are they?
Yeah, Nigeria is blessed with a vast coastline, over 800 kilometers, and we have so much, of the marine resources, fish, hydrocarbons, fauna, coral reefs, and with this illegal fishing, it impacts on the livelihood of artisanal fishermen. I mean, the woman in Ekpe or the fisherman somewhere in the Niger Delta, because these illegal fishermen, who engage in IUU fishing, the fish that they, when they catch the fish from us, it doesn't, the sale, the sale of the fish, the value accruing from the sale of the fish, it doesn't accrue to us, as a nation. It's another country that's kind of like, takes the benefit of it. So it impacts on the livelihood of those local fishermen, the youths who should engage in fishing. It impacts on the youths, getting fish, revenue to the government. The revenue that should accrue to us is being diverted to other economies. And even what we should get from it, what is it called now? Most people depend on fish as a source of protein. So when there's a dearth of that, it impacts on food security. So food security, the livelihood of fishermen, and then jobs for the young people or for the youths.
All right, thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Zacch Adedeji, thank you once again.
My pleasure, thank you.
Coming up, over 1,400 killed during festive season in road accident in South Africa. We'll bring you details of these and more when we get back. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. News Central now continues in West Africa, where Human Rights Watch says 3 Burkina Faso military drone strikes that the government claimed targeted Islamist fighters killed at least 60 civilians and injured scores of more at 2 crowded markets and a packed funeral in Burkina Faso and Mali between August and November 2023. According to the organization, the drone strikes violated laws of war prohibitions against attacks that do not discriminate between civilians and military targets and were apparent war crimes. It adds that the Burkinabe government should promptly ensure independent, impartial and transparent inquiries into the attacks, appropriately prosecute those responsible and adequately compensate victims and their families. Government-controlled media had reported that all 3 attacks killed Islamist fighters and made no reference to civilian casualties. Let's head now to South Africa, where a Pretoria High Court on Wednesday had shocking revelations that Senzo Mayiwa's then-girlfriend and the mother of his child, Kelly Khumalo, ordered the hits on the soccer star to be killed. Khumalo's name was dropped by lead investigator Brigadier Bongani Gininda while reading his second statement he deposed while investigating the murder case. According to Gininda's statement, after the murder, Khumalo failed to disclose 4 cell phone numbers to the police, and the numbers were discovered by cell phone analysts during investigations that she was linked to the accused number 3, Mbobise Mukube, and accused 5, Fisokule Unthuli, through cell phone connections. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, the court also heard from the Brigadier Gininda that accused number 2, Bongani Nthanzi, was said to have been supplying hitmen across the country with guns and ammunition before his arrest. Earlier, Ompemelelo Zikalala, a legal analyst, joined us from Durban, South Africa, and spoke on these developments.
I think what Brigadier Gininda was doing here was to say, this is what we're working on. These are the type of suspicions and the processes that we're engaged in, and this is how it came about that at the end of the day, we're in front of a magistrate conducting this part of the confession that you are talking about. So from the side of the court, they will say, yes, we're going to hear what you are saying, but we're simply going to focus on the confessions at this stage and not on the other involvement of other people, because that's not what the state is presented to us for assessment. However, it's going to be greatly used by the defense in this case, because they will then come back and say, how did you then investigate this particular matter with such important information? Shouldn't you have more individuals sitting in the accused box than the ones that you have now? And if that's the case, what is the other evidence in which you are relying upon? And if there are any holes to be poked in the evidence currently, then they would want their clients to be released, because they would say, you haven't been able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that indeed these particular clients are here. You are even confused yourself in terms of the manner and the investigation that has taken place, because there are a number of people that you are implicating in the investigations. However, when it comes to the prosecution, you are saying another thing. It's very clear that the police have simply failed in providing their duties, basic services, making sure that the crime scene is not contaminated is something that would be a basic requirement and a basic training that would be received by a police officer. So on that alone, that means that the evidence that you are taking to court is going to be contaminated. It's not going to be foolproof evidence, and the only thing that you're going to rely on is the evidence which is going to be provided by your police officers and all the other officials that are there. And even if themselves come to court and they are
South African police have arrested a man who posed as a teenager to lure underage girls to a chat group where child pornography was distributed and shared amongst 3 child online sexual predators. Those child sexual predators have also been arrested in a joint operation by the Serial and Electronic Crime Investigations Unit and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Now, this brings the total number of child online sexual predators that have been arrested since November to 7. The man was found with 95,000 images and 6,000 videos of child pornography. He faces a charge of accessing, distributing, and possession of child pornography. And to talk about this, we'll be joined live on the news by Bosiswa Mpini, a social worker. She joins us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Good afternoon from here. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon.
All right, if you could, just give us a little backstory as to this predator now arrested, who is posing or who was posing as a teenager online.
I think the story that is in the news is telling us that in South Africa there seems to be an increasing number of adult males who are involved in distributing and accessing child pornography, and they are using the internet or the online platform to catfish young children and lure them into their spaces so that they are able to exploit them using the sexual images of children and engaging them in inappropriate sexual conduct.
Busiswa, I'm tempted to ask you, why is there such prevalence of child sexual predator in South Africa?
I think in the time of internet where everyone has access, especially to private internet spaces, it is easy, and also because in South Africa also it is said that many young children also have access to cell phones and internet that is also not supervised, and that then therefore leads to our children being vulnerable to these predators. I think the psychology explains the phenomena of child predators, or what we call child pedophiles, which is adult people who find sexual satisfaction by engaging in sexual exploitation of children. And therefore that this phenomena continues to rise because of this psychological, one can say, disorder, but it is harmful towards our children. But the effect of child pornography increasing is because there is so much access to internet in South Africa, and especially because private internet enables these predators to be able to use these social media platforms to attract the children, and the children are not aware of these dangers because they also have this freedom of access to internet.
All right, let's talk solutions here. I mean, how can one guard against or even identify a child sexual predator in an online space?
So the child online predator, the online predators, you know, they use different strategies to attract children into these harmful spaces. The important thing, I think, for parents to do, or guardians, is to make sure that we safeguard our children in entering these spaces by ensuring that when we are giving our children these cell phones, smart cell phones, somehow we are able to provide the backup in terms of ensuring that there are apps that are limiting our children to accessing adult web spaces. And then also as parents, we need to actually engage our children about the online safety, agreeing about rules of our children where they are going to engage in an online spaces. And sometimes as parents also, let us have that discipline of sometimes asking from our children those devices and looking at what internet spaces are they visiting, because I don't think we have a control over the child predators, but we have control of protecting our children in terms of limiting the access that they are having in the internet spaces, but also guiding them on what to do when they are on the internet spaces, and how they can identify harmful activities that may get them into danger.
All right, thank you so much for your time on the news. Busiswa Mpini, a social worker. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Staying in the Rainbow Country, South Africa's Department of Transport says a total of 1,427 people were killed in road crashes across the country during the 2023-24 festive season. Minister of Transport, Sindiswe Chikunga, at a media briefing said the figure was lower than the previous festive season, when 1,452 people were killed in road crashes. According to Chikunga, human factors contributed 80.8% of the crashes, vehicle factors accounted for 8.8%, while environmental factors accounted for 10.4% as a result of heavy rainfall and storms. She noted that drunk driving remains the main cause behind road accidents in the country, followed by reckless and negligent behavior on the road, adding that most of the people who lost their lives were between the ages of 25 and 44. You're watching News Central now. Still ahead, Spain calls for an end to attacks targeting US-led coalition in Iraq. We'll bring you details of these and more when we get back. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Alvarez says the spate of attacks targeting US-led troops in Iraq assisting the campaign against Islamic State group jihadists need to stop. Alvarez, during a visit to Iraq, where his government has troops deployed, said it is crucial to avoid a spillover effect of the crisis in Gaza. US-led coalition forces in Iraq and Syria have been targeted in more than 150 attacks since mid-October, many of them claimed by the Islamic resistance in Iraq, a loose alliance of Iran-linked groups that oppose U.S. support for Israel in the Gaza conflict.
Attacks against foreign troops need to stop, and we appreciate and I want to commend the efforts of Iraq's government to protect our people who are deployed here to support the fight against terrorism and to support Iraq's unity, sovereignty and stability through capacity building of
And now to sports stories. With the group phase of the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations concluded, the Super Eagles of Nigeria have been drawn to face old rivals, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon, on Saturday at the Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium in Abuja. The tie comes 40 years after Cameroon came back from conceding a 10th-minute goal to defeat Nigeria by 3-1 in the final of the 1984 AFCON at the same venue. Ahead of that match, Super Eagles defenders Bright Osai Samuel and Kenneth Omoru revealed that they are eagerly looking forward to the encounter.
Of course, now it's knockouts, you know, so there's no 3 points now. It's either you win and you're through, or if you lose, you're out. So we know that comes with pressure. But like I said, I think if you look at in our group, we have players with vast experience, you know, in this situation that we're in now. I think we have the players that can, you know, thrive in this situation. So I think if you look around the group, everyone's confident. Everyone's looking forward to the game. Me, myself, and you know, Cameroon are a very strong team. You know, they've got good players. But like I said, I think if we focus on ourselves and look at what we can do and how we can hurt them, then I think we have a very good chance of winning the game.
Obviously, Cameroon is a familiar face. They're a country that we've played several times before, a country with good players. But, you know, we're focused, we're training, and I think by the time the game gets closer, we believe in the coaches to provide us with the best tactics to win the game. We're confident, you know, after the last game we said to ourselves, whoever we get next, we just have to keep to our game plan, take it 100%, and you know, we can beat any team.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Nigeria's Supreme Court has affirmed Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba governors' election victories. Human Rights Watch alleged Burkina Faso military drone strike killed 60 civilians. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says growing partner in Angola. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.